What if cloud could optimize itself? Meaning, what if AI can actually make cloud cheaper and faster? There is a big trilemma, cost, performance, and reliability trilemma. Optimization has historically relied on manual configuration and rule-based human intervention for rules.
Oracle, the database Oracle, has probably hundreds of parameters. Understanding the parameters is impossible. There are these gurus hidden somewhere that, tweak parameters in order for the database to gain some, speed or ability or whatever.
Let's jump right in, especially maybe taking a little moment to remind what happened 2 weeks ago. Big round happening into the precision medicine and advanced diagnostic space. So Enea Tech and Biomedical Foundation investing 15 million in Tethis to develop new diagnostic methods in oncology using liquid biopsy. So we're not specialists in the field. But it's always interesting to see the scope and how big these rounds are into the medical field. Every month, pretty much, there is a big announcement happening, and it's very interesting to see Italy really moving very fast and very much in the bigger round space for bio and medical deals. So definitely a very interesting signal. What is your first take, Nick, on this one?
No, I agree with you. Technology in that area is advancing rapidly and addressing very important problems in the world. And there's a promise to support early detection of cancer through their technology is absolutely important and probably one of the keystones of the next wave of medicine. So what should I say? I mean, awesome. The life sciences, I know nothing about life sciences as an investor, but the current technological wave, there's a huge promise about the next wave of health tech and medicine, creating a new set of opportunities for better health. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. That's not just as a kind of a mission-driven kind of vertical. I think what is interesting is the kind of high-level tech that we can always see seeping in these kind of deals from a perspective from people like us that watch more consumer digital SaaS businesses. So especially in this particular deal, there are 3 components, which essentially is just to get a little bit technical, but I think it's worth mentioning. So the innovation happens in 3 things for Tethis, which is the blood sample preparation, the smart biosurface slides, so the little tools that basically help capturing molecules of bloods, and then the use of AI algorithm to actually for early detection. So you don't only have a deep tech, new material sort of elements. You do not have only AI. You have a combination of everything that really works in synergy. So it's very interesting to see this deal, and definitely we can totally see the value of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is also interesting to talk about the investor in the round, the lead investor. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, Enea Tech, definitely worth noticing. I think so far they have 4 big investments in portfolio. One that we mentioned a few weeks ago, in particular, I think in the neuroscience space. So that's definitely something interesting, and it's a private foundation. So interesting player into the ecosystem. Not many. Well, there are a few foundations, but what is interesting is that it's an independent private foundation acting independently or co-investing with other institutional investors. So definitely an interesting player.
Yeah, it's a foundation with quite a big availability of funds to invest in the life sciences space, and in the last couple of months they've been very active. At least they announced quite a few rounds. Another couple this week. One actually last week that I missed, but so see you next week on this one. So they're very active and investing in Series A-ish rounds. So we see this one in Tethis, but there are a couple more, worth a few million each. So very interesting.
Awesome. Moving on. So, what if cloud could optimize itself? Meaning, what if AI can actually make cloud cheaper and faster? So with this question in mind, I think it's interesting to see what has happened with Akamas. Akamas is a cloud optimization startup raising 10 million in a round led by United Ventures. Very interesting perspective. I was digging a little into the technology that they're using. So in general, what's happening is that, cloud has been like popular in the past like decades. Everyone is on cloud. There is no alternative. But there is a big trilemma, apparently, which is the cost, performance, and reliability trilemma. So it's really either you optimize one or the other, a balance. It's really tough to get like a balanced approach. And from my understanding, and then Nick, I'm very curious to see what you think about is that the big problem is that optimization has has historically relied on manual configuration and rule-based human intervention for rules. So it's, despite the fact that is, intuitively something that you should be optimizing immediately and automatizing, there is a lot of humans involved in the automation. So this is the big problem. And go ahead.
Please. No, you have no idea what's, it's the classical word of optimizing an enterprise application. That's fun. I think that to name one example, Oracle, the database Oracle, not Oracle, the company, the database has probably hundreds of parameters, and understanding the parameters is impossible. I think that nobody knows exactly what each single parameter on the database does. And so there are these gurus hidden somewhere that, tweak parameters in order for the database to gain some, speed or reliability or whatever. And it is much more art than science. So, this is just an example. The Java virtual machine. Don't get me started. So it's crazy. Hundreds of parameters. Yes.
Wow. So yeah, Akamas is trying to fix that. So it's a software platform using AI, of course, to optimize application and the underlying infrastructure. So that's it's pretty much trying to break the paradigm. And essentially what they're doing is relying to the latest AI frameworks. So basically, they're very much focusing on a lot of elements, including reinforcement learning, and a lot of ways so that the model can test different configuration in independent environments to find the best way to optimize cloud in general. What is interesting and what is probably the game-changing part is that this is a game that, if it works really well, can significantly slash cloud cost up to between from what I was reading, between 20 to 30%. So imagine apps, software running on AWS immediately slashing their spending on big cloud, on their cloud spending by a significant amount. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, and still keeping at an acceptable level all the KPIs the SLAs that you expect them. I mean, if you cut your infrastructure, but your website takes ages to respond, your users will go away. So this, as you said, that this balance between lean infrastructure, cost under control, and the expected KPIs, SLAs of your service is a difficult balance to achieve. And well, this is a very interesting proposition.
Yeah, and bold. I mean, they are basically they framed this fundraise to actually expand in the US. So they're gonna relocate an office in Boston. Apparently, is where a lot of cloud services have their headquarters. So very interesting and really tackling some of the great markets over there. So kudos for United to actually supporting the growth. And very interesting example of a company kind of jumping the ocean and expanding in something that can have like a very huge, massive upside. So interesting.
I agree. The other interesting thing is that Akamas, as a matter of fact, is a spin out of Moviri. That's an interesting Italian company started out of consulting, IT consulting. And then in the recent years, they've been involved in quite a few interesting operations, such as the Arduino investment.
Wow.
They were involved. Yes, so they invested in Clify, that later raised cybersecurity startup. Clify later raised from United as well. So they've been serial in this. So not just consulting anymore, but also launching and evolving startups, technology startups. So very interesting model.
Yeah, it feels like a studio in a way, but not really. They would never define themselves a studio for sure.
No.
But it's interesting to see how the depth of the product they're developing in very specific fields. So it's super impressive.
Put it that way. So they operate at a very high level in enterprise, in consulting and strategy in enterprise. And they're quite smart. So they identify problems and they start productizing the solutions. That's unusual. And then in the case of Akamas, they spun out the solution and made it an independent company in order to scale more rapidly. That's
beautiful.
Very interesting.
Awesome. All right. Another notable investment is Krill Design. Talking about kind of on the investment on the biggest side. So Krill Design, a sustainable material startup, raising $6 million from Algebris Investments, Primo Capital, and Crédit Agricole Italia. Very interesting deal. So it's definitely something in the circular, sustainable economy space. It's essentially using recycled materials to manufacture different kind of objects. It's patent driven, so they have like a specific patent technology that protects all the process, all the manufacturing process. So very, very interesting. And they are gonna essentially expand the business thanks to this fundraising. So it's quite a substantial fundraise. It's kind of, I would say, like a very healthy, typical progression of hardware. Let's call them hardware startup, where the big raise is actually when they do the big manufacturing jump, and Krill is right there. So they've been playing with this technology for a while. They gain some clients, and now it's time to make the big jump. So this is what is probably going to drive them into growth in the future.
Yeah. I agree with you. So this is, in terms of investment, I know nothing about the company, but in terms of investment, this is the first investment by our climate tech fund, Primo Climate. But the investment was actually led, I think, by Algebris Investments, with their climate tech fund that they announced earlier in January. So two new investors in the block joining forces at the very first investment. So interesting. And Crédit Agricole joining the round, so the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Nick. So let's open our small AI LLM corner, talking about Vitruvian-1. So Vitruvian-1, new Italian reasoning LM, focus on basically a very specific application, but what is interesting is that it's trained on the Italian language and the nuance of languages. So the value proposition is really that's going to be very advanced in terms of understanding our language, which has a lot of complexities compared to Anglo-Saxon languages. So basically, their core application right now is medicine, law, and military strategy. 120 billion tokens, and essentially, again, there is like a very interesting and quite deep research paper, which essentially touches on some of the newest infrastructure in machine learning. Let me mention a few without going into the details. So essentially, a continuous pre-training, chain of thought technology, and then supervised fine-tuning with reinforcement learning. So it's really a combo of a lot of the latest that we see happening like in the biggest models. So definitely like they might have a competitive edge to compete with the Chinese model or the US models. What is your reaction?
Well, it was quite. The first reaction was, "Oh, wow!" So we have another player in the arena from our geography. Nice. Then, if I may correct you, the Vitruvian-1 model, the first one that they announced, is a 14 billion parameters model. So it's a small-ish
Okay, sorry. Yeah, got it.
language model. It was trained on a 120 billion token corpus. So there's a paper in the newsletter, which I think I understood 1%. But they explain a few of the tricks they employed in order to get to Vitruvian-1. So I say tricks because they apply some smart moves in order to get to the current state of the model, which it was released in beta yesterday. So I think it is currently open and can be used and play with. I have to say, a 14 billion parameters model that looks quite effective. It's a very nice attainment. If you think about DeepSeek, it was a 600 billion something parameters, so very huge model. And then they distilled from it the smaller ones. In this case, the very first model they are releasing is the small one. I expect them to start working on bigger models going forward. And I think the other important thing to mention is that the founders, the company that launched Vitruvian-1, ASC 27, they were quite clear in saying that this is not a chatbot; it's a reasoning model. So they're absolutely following the hype wave. So don't chat with it, reason with it. That's kind of interesting.
That's good. No, that's absolutely interesting. So it's a higher level model. So just the chit chat is really like let's go deep. Let's really understand better the difficult languages. And I thought it was curious to actually mention the fact of mentioning medicine, law, and military strategy. I mean, for sure, some of the discipline with the highest complexity, thinking about law in particular and all the relationship, which might be easy to follow or impossible to understand. Italian law is definitely not the easiest thing to get. So very interesting, and excited to see what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, I think we'll hear from them again in the near future.
Awesome. All right, Nick, thank you so much for joining. That ends this week's session, and I'll see you next week.
Ciao, Jack. Ciao, everybody. Have a great week. See you next week.